can play.
All right, welcome back. We're just a few minutes away from the next round of state tournament games, whether you're at Pinnacle Bank Arena or the Devaney Center. Class A will start at 1:30. Bellevue West and Prep, North and Central, Millard North and Gretna at 6 o'clock, and West Side and Lincoln Southeast at 7:45. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic joins us now on the 42 Degrees The Source hotline. Mitch, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for adjusting my time today. I'm actually I'm impressed with the cell phone reception here in the hallways underneath Pinnacle Bank Arena as we speak.
Well, that makes sense because a little behind the scenes, the Wi-Fi might not be so good in there. But
it's not great.
So it's good to hear that the phone reception is at least decent in the bowels.
It is at least it's holding out for the moment. But we got basketball here at the bottom of the hour.
So you're hanging out and you're watching all day long. Like I guess you were already in Lincoln and now you're just like, let's watch 4 basketball games. Why not?
At least 3. I was at Memorial Stadium for some work this morning, and instead of coming back to Omaha, I just arranged a ride for my son to get down here tonight for the Gretna Millard North game, and I'm just going to hang out and watch the first 2.
Smart. Well, you wrote, I think, did we convince you to write about Gretna last week, or did we push you over the edge on that one? Because if we did, we're happy to be that group of people because it was good stuff.
It's possible that you did. I think I decided as I was watching the aftermath of the Gretna Kearney district final, and it was really just the moment. I wasn't at that game, but I was watching on the stream, and then I saw the pictures that like Dirk Chatlin posted and some others after the game of Brad and Jenny Feakin's daughters cutting the nets down. And I just kind of had to do it. I've as I wrote in the piece that came out today, I've really been resistant to, and not only for the reason that I don't want in any way for anyone to feel like I'm exploiting this situation that these boys have gone through and that Gretna has gone through. But I think as I wrote, the story changed and there's a new chapter began last week when, for the first time, I felt like the focus just really turned back to basketball. And that was an incredible environment on Tuesday night at Kearney. And Gretna got out of there with a 2-point win, and the half court shot hitting the rim as the game ended. And then all of the emotion at the end of the game. And it's been emotion from the beginning of the season because Coach Feakin was sick and he'd been sick for 2 years, but it was worse. And then of course he died on December 30th. And I was there that night at Creighton Prep when they won on the buzzer beater with Landon Pekorski hitting the shot. Fred Hoiberg was there and I even talked to Fred about it on Sunday after the Nebraska Rutgers game. And that his comments are in the piece, but the boys on that team have really just shown the way, and they've been the leaders through all of this. When I think the adults in Gretna, and that's me included, felt like it would have to be the town, that they would have to be all the older people who helped them, but it really has been the opposite.
Yep, not blinking at all. So Gretna will play at 6 o'clock tonight against a team who they have some state tournament history with in Millard North in one of the Class A quarterfinals. Okay, Mitch. Well, let's get to the other reason why that you were in Lincoln earlier this afternoon. So you don't have to tell us too much about the conversation with Tony White, but well, first of all, can we confirm that Tony White is still employed and is the defensive coordinator at Nebraska and will be, at least for what we see for the upcoming season?
Is there some doubt? Absolutely.
Okay, it's good because at all times people are just curious. All right, are we wondering what's Tony White up to today? Hopefully he's not leaving, but I think we're putting that chapter behind us.
Yeah, the page has turned on coaching carousel season. I mean, you never say never, but Tony's 100% fully all in with this defense and this Nebraska team for 2024. And, it's pretty amazing how seemingly every school that he's ever been associated with as a coach or a player had an opening at their head coaching spot this offseason.
Yeah.
And that was unnerving for him because he has aspirations to be a head coach, and he also had the clear and the clear backing of Matt Rule. I mean, and that was something that Tony and I talked about today is just how honored he was. Maybe not the right word, but just how taken aback almost he was by Matt Rule's outspokenness publicly to advocate for Tony White after 1 year together for him to become a head coach. And, one thing that Tony explained to me, and I'll go more in depth in the story that I write that'll be out Friday, is how it wasn't just that Matt Rule came out in media sessions and said, you should hire Tony White, or that Matt Rule made phone calls to athletic directors telling those ADs that they should hire Tony White. It was that was just a small part of it. Matt Rule was working with Tony White behind the scenes, be it at a practice or a meeting or whatever's going on in football season, and trying to show him moments and taking him aside and showing him the ropes. Like, this is something that you'll want to pay attention to when you become a head coach. So his support and the support that Tony White feels in this program is really an incredible thing. Again, considering that the two of them, they have some history at UCLA way back at the start of both of their careers, but really they were new to each other in December of 2022, and here we are a short time later, and Matt Rule is his strongest ally, the strongest ally that Tony White's ever had in his career.
Yeah,
for the advancement of his coaching, succession.
Coaches have, I don't know if they say this out loud because it would obviously sound bad, but they give off generally the impression sometimes of like, hey man, like that's not my job, it's not my job to make sure this guy gets a better job. It's not my job to make sure this guy goes on and has a successful career. Like, we're trying to get done what we're doing here, and there won't be anything standing in the way of us having a successful season. So like, there's a balance there that head coaches have to sort of strike in between, obviously keeping coaches, but developing coaches, developing players, and also making sure, well, we got to have the best product that we could possibly get on the field. I never got the sense that those two really conflicted with each other. And that's an impressive job by Matt Rule for last year. That's for sure.
And the hardest part of that balance, it's harder for the assistant coach, because the assistant coach, the one who might be pursuing or interested in a job or trying to find out if he is interested in a job, they're the ones who, they're not in charge. A head coach can get mad and can do whatever, and there's not going to necessarily be repercussions. But an assistant coach has to be careful with the way that they go about that time of year. And, Tony referenced to me that he's been in other spots at other jobs where you felt that it was uncomfortable in those moments where he's looking to advance his career, but you have to be careful because the head coach doesn't want you to leave. And he never had an ounce of that kind of vibe from Matt Rule over the last few months.
Look forward, Mitch, to hearing what you get from the chat with Tony White coming up on The Athletic. We were talking about this yesterday, looking at a couple of your colleagues' coaches list, and Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman. I think Feldman had Matt Rule as 18 in the country, and I was sort of looking up and down the coaches across the country, the guys that they had listed, and a thought came to my head, and I wanted to bounce it off of you. So the theory, my operating theory with the Big Ten coaches is specifically with their staffs and how there really there's not any room for holes on those staffs. And I know it's been a thing in the past where, like, you can have a dedicated recruiter on the staff and he's on the full-time staff because of the amount of contact that he can make with players during the season. But maybe as far as his on the field role, it's not quite, he strays more to the recruiting side. I wonder how the Pac-12 teams coming in will adjust to that and how quickly they will learn that lesson when they face all of these stabs across the conference that are completely airtight in terms of like there's very few quote unquote bad assistant coaches in the league. And I'm not saying that there are on those teams either, but I think that's something that maybe those West Coast schools might have to learn fast.
Yeah, I'd look at those coaches and those programs, and I think, okay, Dan Lanning in Oregon, they're going to be okay because he's been in the SEC, and I think he understands the dynamic on a coaching staff that it takes to be able to compete in college football at the highest level. So I don't, if I'm Oregon, I'm not too concerned about what you just said. But if you're Washington and you have a new coach, and a lot of times things can fall through the cracks when there's a new coach, no matter how good that coach is, in the first year or two, it's not always as airtight as they would like. So yeah, that you might have a hole at Washington this year with Jed Fish. He does have head coaching experience, and he's been in a Power 5 conference, and he's been as an assistant coach in the Big Ten, which should help.
Yeah.
But UCLA, that's a legitimately serious concern about a first-time head coach. And now you're making this move into the Big Ten. So you already had some things to deal with that could be tough. And you throw in the fact that there's going to be inexperience. So he's really going to have to put people around him. And I know he's put his staff together, but he's going to have people around him who do a great job. And it's going to be a process for UCLA, I expect. And then at USC
was the interesting one because Lincoln Riley was, he was a top 10 coach, and I think both of those guys lists. And it's just, I feel it's not only the quality of competition and what you're seeing on a week-to-week basis, but it's all of the stuff. And I wonder how that works with Lincoln Riley, who's, I think, taking a lot of it on himself, but it needs to kind of have a different setup in the conference, I think.
I definitely say that they're second best prepared among the four teams coming in. But I might say that it's not like 1 and 1A. Like Oregon's got an advantage over USC with the position that it's in coming into the Big Ten. USC still is figuring some things out, and they clearly had major issues on defense last year, and they've invested big money into trying to fix that. But you don't want to be trying to fix everything as you make this jump. The hope is that when the league expands and you're a part of the expansion, that you've got your house in order. And I don't think that's the case for USC necessarily.
Yeah, Nebraska had to learn that lesson the hard way because of, number one, I think the stark contrast from the league that they were in to the league that they were going to, but also when it happened and who they went with, which was nobody at the time, right? They went by themselves. So at least those West Coast schools have, kind of some company to kind of make that transition with. But I still think, you don't have to become a Big Ten school, but you're going to be playing them every week, and you got to figure out what they're all about. So it changes the game for them drastically, in my opinion.
I think it's a real. They're coming in together, and it's a benefit for those teams. Just to your point, think about the situation with Nebraska, where Nebraska had 13 new teams to prepare for, or actually Rutgers and Maryland came in later, so 11 new teams to prepare for, and all of those teams had one new team to prepare for on the potential conference matchups. So, at least for UCLA and Washington, the two teams that are most vulnerable coming in from the Pac-12. At least they can say, well, there's four of us. So if Ohio State or Penn State is going through the off-season scouting, they can't entirely spend their time with the new programs all on one program. They've got to divide it and spend maybe 30% on Oregon and USC, and then 20% on Washington and UCLA.
Yep. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. Mitch, great stuff as always. We look forward to the Tony White stuff, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Connor.
Tony White, or not Tony White, Mitch Sherman of The Athletic. We just had Tony White on, Josh.
We should get Tony White on. That'd be big for us.
We probably. I don't know. He's doing some interviews right now.
Apparently he's talking.
But yeah, I mean, he was. I watched his sit down that he did with Husker Online and Sean and Sipple, and
did the cat get out?
His energy from what he shows us in the media, where he kind of walks in and he's got a hoodie on and he's got his hands in his pockets and he kind of just, he's there. He's like, I'll answer your question. Like the passion doesn't necessarily identify itself in those settings. But they got him coming off the practice field. They did some third down stuff. He's how much better they need to get at third down. He's a super detail oriented dude who, they just because they were better last year does not mean anything. And just because he's up for head coaching jobs and, it's like a senior coming back for his fifth year. He didn't get what he wanted in the NBA thing, but if he comes back another year, he'll be a lock solid first round pick.
He's going to shoot up the boards.
Yeah. That's kind of the situation that Tony White's in right now, but you wouldn't know it. He's kind of Baylor Shireman-ing it this year.
Oh. Will Tony White lose the undershirt and headband?
Maybe we see some aesthetic changes from Tony.